The storm outside painted the night sky with streaks of lightning, but Adam Sterling barely noticed. He stood in his office at the top of the tower, surrounded by glass walls that reflected his success, polished desks, leather chairs, awards in frames that glittered under the soft light. To everyone else, he was the man who had it all. The billionaire CEO who built an empire out of nothing. The man who could walk into any boardroom and command silence. But even in that moment of triumph, a quiet emptiness pressed against his chest, a silence too heavy to ignore. He told himself he didn't need anyone. He told himself love was a distraction. That emotion only weakened a man destined to rule the world. Yet sometimes, in the stillness between deals and meetings, her voice would return to him. Chloe's laughter, the softness in her eyes when she once believed he was more than his ambition. He had walked away from her with the same calm tone he used to close a contract, convinced that success demanded sacrifice. But what haunted him now wasn't the memory of leaving. It was the thought of what he might have left behind. On that night, as the storm raged on, his driver handed him an envelope that had been delivered with no sender's name. Inside was a single photograph. His ex-wife stood on a quiet street, her hand resting protectively on the shoulder of a little girl. The child's eyes, wide and filled with curiosity, mirrored his own. Adam's pulse faltered. For the first time in years, his certainty cracked. The world he had built on cold logic suddenly felt like it was made of glass, and with one look, it began to shatter. Adam sat in the back of the sleek black car, the photo still trembling between his fingers. The driver glanced at him in the rear-view mirror, but quickly looked away, as if sensing that something fragile had just broken in his boss's world. For years, Adam had trained himself to treat every decision as a transaction, measured, precise, without hesitation. Yet this was different. No balance sheet, no contract, no merger could prepare him for the sight of those eyes. He pressed the photo closer, searching every detail. The curve of the child's cheek, the faint dimple when she smiled, the way her hair curled just like his had as a boy. He couldn't deny it. Blood was written in her face. 1,000 thoughts collided in his mind. Why hadn't Chloe told him? How long had she carried this secret? And more importantly, what right did he have now to step into a life he had abandoned? He told himself it was too late, that his choice had been final, but the steady ache in his chest refused to listen. For the first time in years, Adam Sterling, the man the world feared and admired, felt powerless. That night he didn't return to his penthouse. He told the driver to head toward the small town printed faintly on the back of the photo. As the city lights faded behind him, Adam felt a strange fear rise. Fear not of losing money or power, but of facing the truth he had run from. Somewhere ahead waited a woman he had hurt beyond measure, and a daughter who had never heard his name. The car slowed as it entered the quiet town, its streets lined with old lamp-posts and little shops that closed before the night grew deep. It was nothing like the world Adam was used to. There were no glittering towers, no flashing cameras, no sharp suits rushing to catch their next meeting. Instead, there was stillness, broken only by the sound of rain dripping from rooftops. For a man who had lived in glass offices and private jets, this silence felt heavier than a boardroom full of rivals. He asked the driver to stop near a small park, his eyes scanning the surroundings with a nervous intensity he hadn't felt since his first business pitch years ago. And then he saw her. Chloe. She was walking with a little girl beside her, the child clutching a worn umbrella that looked almost too big for her small hands. Chloe's hair, once golden and flowing, was tied simply now, strands falling gently across her face. Yet her presence was unchanged, quiet strength wrapped in grace. Adam's breath caught, his heart thundering against the walls he had built around it. He leaned forward, staring through the rain-streaked window, afraid to blink in case the image disappeared. The little girl laughed at something her mother said, a sound so pure it pierced the storm. That laughter drew Adam's eyes again, and what he saw nearly brought him to his knees. It was the same spark he remembered from his own childhood reflection, a light he thought he had buried under ambition. She was his, there was no denying it. At that moment, all the power and wealth he had once worshipped felt meaningless. For the first time in years, Adam wanted not another deal, but a chance. A chance to reclaim the life he had thrown away. Adam's hand hovered over the car door handle, but he couldn't bring himself to open it. For a man who had faced hostile takeovers and ruthless competitors without flinching, the simple act of stepping into the rain to face Chloe and the little girl felt like the most terrifying challenge of his life. He watched them from a distance, every second tightening the knot inside his chest. Chloe bent down to adjust the child's coat, her face soft with patience and care, the kind of tenderness he had once taken for granted and then cast aside. The child slipped her hand into her mother's, and in that tiny gesture, Adam felt the weight of years he could never win back. When Chloe finally looked up, for a split second their eyes met across the rain-slick street. Adam froze. Time seemed to stop as recognition flashed in her gaze, quickly followed by disbelief. She clutched her daughter's hand a little tighter and turned away, as if protecting her from the ghost of a man she no longer trusted. That simple motion cut deeper than any rejection Adam had ever known. He realized then that power couldn't buy forgiveness, and titles couldn't bridge the distance his choices had carved. His driver shifted uncomfortably. "Sir." "Should I?" "No," Adam whispered, his voice barely audible but heavy with regret. As Chloe disappeared down the street, Adam knew he couldn't let her vanish again. The storm outside was nothing compared to the storm within him. For the first time, he wasn't thinking about deals or deadlines. He was thinking about family, and he knew he had to fight for it, no matter how late he was. The next morning, Adam found himself standing outside a modest cafe on the corner of the town square. He hadn't slept, not because of business calls or restless ambition, but because the image of Chloe and the little girl haunted every moment his eyes closed. He had built empires on strategy and timing, but now he had no plan, only the desperate hope that life would give him another chance. Through the glass window he saw them. Chloe sipping coffee, her daughter coloring on a piece of paper beside her. It was an ordinary scene, yet to Adam it looked more precious than any victory he had ever achieved. His palms were damp as he pushed the door open, the small bell above it chiming softly. Chloe looked up, and the warmth in her face turned to ice the instant she recognized him. Her hand instinctively reached across the table, pulling her daughter closer. The little girl's wide eyes shifted between them, curious but silent. Adam's throat tightened, but he forced himself to speak. "Chloe, please." "Just a minute." His voice cracked on words he once delivered with flawless confidence. She stood slowly, her expression calm but guarded, like someone who had rebuilt herself piece by piece, and refused to let the past shatter her again. "Why are you here, Adam?" she asked, her tone quiet yet sharp enough to cut through the room. Every pair of eyes in the cafe seemed to turn toward them, but Adam only saw her, the woman he had walked away from, and the child who carried his reflection. In that moment, he knew this was no boardroom negotiation. This was the fight for the only legacy that mattered. Adam stood frozen, his carefully rehearsed composure unraveling under Chloe's steady gaze. For years, he had been the man who commanded rooms, who signed deals that changed industries, yet now he felt like a boy caught in a mistake he could never undo. His eyes fell on the little girl again, her small hand clutching her crayon, her curious gaze fixed on him with a kind of innocence that pierced through every layer of armor he had built. "She's mine, isn't she?" The words slipped from him before he could stop them. His voice cracked with the weight of truth he had denied himself for so long. Chloe's lips trembled, though her eyes held firm. "You walked away, Adam. You chose another life. And in that choice, you chose to miss hers." Her words weren't bitter. They were steady, spoken like someone who had carried pain long enough to turn it into strength. Adam felt his chest tighten. For the first time, he wasn't standing across from a woman he had once loved. He was standing across from the life he had destroyed with his own hands. "I was wrong," he whispered, his voice raw, unpolished, stripped of the pride that had once ruled him. "All the money, the success, it means nothing if I don't know her. If I don't make this right." His hands shook slightly as he reached out, not to touch, but to show he no longer came as the man who once broke her heart, but as someone willing to earn even the smallest piece of trust. The little girl tilted her head, studying him, her young voice breaking the silence. "Mom, who is he?" In that single question, Adam realized he stood at the edge of everything: loss, redemption, and the fragile chance at a second beginning.